The night had an eerie stillness, the kind that crawls under the skin and whispers that something is coming. On the outskirts of a forgotten Arizona town, where the desert wind scraped against rusted metal like a warning, a solitary biker known only as Crow lived in a rundown shack at the edge of nowhere. Once a feared and respected member of the Hell Angels, he had watched his brothers scatter, his purpose crumble, and his life turn hollow. Now, it was only him, his scars, and a mutt named Ghost. Until the morning Ghost wouldn't stop barking at the fence. That was when Crow's lonely world cracked open, revealing a mystery that would shake him in ways he thought he'd grown too numb to feel. If you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Crow had lived alone for 3 long years, doing everything he could to stay away from trouble and from the world that had turned its back on him. His biker days were filled with violence, loyalty, and the strange brotherhood the Hell Angels prided themselves on, but when a deal went wrong and cost him the only person he ever cared about, his younger brother, Crow had walked away from everything. He drifted until he found the abandoned property he now called home, a patch of dirt surrounded by chain-link fence, old motorcycle parts, and the silence he believed he deserved. People kept their distance. They whispered. They judged the leather, the tattoos, the past he wore like a stain. Crow didn't care. He had grown used to being a shadow, but Ghost cared. The white shepherd had shown up injured one night, limping and starving. Crow had no intention of keeping him, yet the dog slept at his door, protected him, followed him. Eventually, the two recognized something of themselves in each other, 2 lost souls abandoned by the world. Ghost became Crow's anchor, the only presence that warmed the cold space inside him. That morning, before the sun had risen completely, Ghost erupted into frantic, desperate barking. It wasn't the usual territorial warning. It was sharper, urgent. Crow stepped out with suspicion knotting in his muscles, expecting a coyote or a trespasser. Instead, his breath caught in his throat. Because tied to his fence with rough rope, half conscious and trembling, was a woman. Her clothes were torn, dirt streaking her face, bruises blooming on her skin like dark flowers. Her eyes, barely open, flickered with a mix of terror and relief when she realized Crow wasn't the one who hurt her. For a moment, Crow froze. He had seen brutality before. He had lived it, caused some of it, but this was different. This woman had been left to die in his yard as if she were nothing. Something burned inside him, a feeling he thought he'd lost forever, protectiveness. He carried her inside, cleaned her wounds, and gave her water. She winced with every breath, but she clung to consciousness, whispering fragments of words. Running, dark truck. They followed. Escape. Couldn't. She didn't say her name, and Crow didn't ask. He simply stayed by her side until exhaustion forced her eyes shut. He didn't know who had hurt her, but he felt a storm rising inside his chest, one that demanded answers. As the hours passed, Crow thought about calling the sheriff, but he knew how people saw him. A former Hell Angel with a criminal record, living in a shack where a battered woman had been found. It was a recipe for blame. And deep down, he had a haunting sense that whoever had tied her there was sending him a message. His past had long fingers. Maybe they had finally reached for him again. Days went by, and the woman slowly regained strength. She still spoke little, but the fear in her eyes began to ease. She watched Ghost roll in the dust, nudge her hand, guard her. For the first time in years, Crow found himself caring whether someone else felt safe around him. He tried to keep distance, telling himself she'd leave soon, but his heart betrayed him each time he saw her whisper something to Ghost or stare at the sunrise like she was rediscovering hope. He learned her name, Elena, and piece by piece, like someone placing shattered glass on a table, she shared her story. She had escaped a trafficking ring, hidden in an abandoned barn, and fled in the dark with no idea where she was going. They had caught up to her near Crow's property, beating her, tying her to the fence as a warning to anyone who dared help her. She hadn't known whose home it was, but Ghost had sensed her, saved her. As Elena spoke, Crow felt something inside him crack. His whole life he had believed he was beyond redemption, a man too broken to be part of anything good. But now, sitting across from a woman who had survived horrors he couldn't imagine, he realized he had a chance to protect someone again, not through violence, not through revenge, but through kindness, a path he had never walked before. But the danger wasn't gone. One evening, headlights cut across the property. A truck idled near the fence, and Crow felt cold dread flood him. These were the same men. Ghost growled, body rigid. Elena trembled, whispering that they had come to finish what they started. Crow's fists clenched, old instincts clawing their way back. But instead of grabbing a weapon, he grabbed his phone. For the first time in years, he called the sheriff. When authorities arrived, Crow stood beside Elena, rough and rugged but unshaken. The men were arrested. Elena was taken into protective custody, but not before she hugged Crow, tight, grateful, trembling. She told him Ghost had saved her life, but he had saved her soul. Crow didn't reply, but the dampness in his eyes said enough. The silence of his home felt different after she left. Not empty, just quieter, gentler. Crow sat outside with Ghost at his feet, realizing that saving Elena had saved him too. He wasn't abandoned, he wasn't cursed, he was a man who still had the power to do good. And sometimes, that was all a second chance required. If this story moved your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. Before you go, drop a comment. What would you have done if Ghost found someone tied to your fence?